Hey there, Geek Mom here. Geek Dad and I have been talking a little bit about how to get some costuming onto our channel. It's something that I enjoy doing. Typically I do it for my kids, but occasionally I do something for myself. So we talked for a couple of weeks about what would be a good avenue, what's the best first project, and we settled on the new Mary Poppins movie that was coming out. I did a little research trying to find what's going to be the best piece to try to make. When you think Mary Poppins, you think that classic Julie Andrews Mary Poppins hat, black with the daisies and the cherries. And in my research, I found that many people have done that and done it so very well. There was really not a way that I felt that I could improve on that particular hat, so I didn't think that was the right avenue. I decided to draw inspiration from the trailers for the new Mary Poppins Returns film. And I really loved seeing her come into the scene in that red hat. It's kind of cheeky and it has just a great flair to it. So I thought I'd see if I could do something, make a hat that could closely resemble that and be a great costuming piece. This is my effort to recreate that. I hope you enjoy it, and here we go. So the build I'm going to show you in this video is actually my second build. My first build, I tried to go completely old school and build from scratch, build an actual hat. And I'd learned that I'm kind of deficient when it comes to building a hat. But that's okay because I'm not trained in building a hat, and the people who can do it are magnificent, but I'm not that person. So my first attempt is a little more abstract art in that it looks great from a distance. But when you get up close, you see every single flaw. So I had to rethink my concept and start over again. When I start a costuming project, I start by going to my favorite costuming haunts, and those include Goodwill, Big Lots, Dollar General, a thrift store if I can find one nearby. Primarily because I don't follow patterns. I usually reuse something that's already there. I reconfigure if I'm doing a clothing piece. I'll take a piece of actual clothing and just reconfigure it to my specific needs. So I don't really need to go to a fabric store to buy yards and yards of fabric because I'm not going to be following directions. Sadly, on this outing, all of my haunts failed me largely. I was unable to find the style of hat I was looking for. I did find some material that I could reuse for a hatband, but I did not find really just the exact style of hat I was looking for. So I had to go to Amazon and find a hat that basically fits the style. It's a basic boater hat. It ended up being, it's Amazon Prime. It was like, I think $10.99. Hat came in a lot of different colors, red being one of them, but I decided I did not like the shade of red that was available and that I would just do it myself. So I got this natural color that I thought I could paint. Since I was starting with the natural color, I went and got my basic acrylic paints, Liquitech Basic, I think they're called. Even though I didn't like the bright red hat that was available through Amazon and still wanted something in the red family. So the colors that I used were black, red, and white. I started off with red and black and came up with something that was way too dark, a deep, almost purple color, and had to add some white back into it. But I tested the color, and I tested several different shades on the very inside top of the hat. It's a great place to test the color because it's not going to be seen from the outside, and you can put several different colors side by side to figure out which one you want to end up with. Once I decided I had the right color for the outside of my hat, I started trying to brush on just that color just straight onto the straw itself. It does brush rather rough, and it took a little time. Had to get a thicker coat than I really thought I was going to need at first, but I got there slowly but surely. What I determined at one point was that I needed to almost water wash it. So I would dip my brush into some water and then brush it back over. What I found that helped with was that it got the color a little bit deeper into those creases in the straw itself, down into the fiber a little bit more. So it wasn't just sitting on top, it was almost soaking in. As I continued painting the hat, I did eventually take the black ribbon hat band off that was on there. Turns out it was just hot glued, so it wasn't really hard to get off. I was trying to get as much paint on there as possible. One thing I did find as I was going, I didn't initially make enough paint of the correct color that I was looking for, so I was having to redo it and try to match. So I would recommend going ahead, once you find a color you like, go ahead and mix a fair amount of it so you have enough to fully cover the hat. You do want to make sure you're getting all the way to the edge on this hat. You are going to flip the hat over and do the underside of the brim. That's the part that is most likely to be seen. You don't necessarily have to do the whole inside of the hat, but specifically around the edge, making sure you get a clean coat of color there. And once you flip the hat upside down, doing the brim on the underside, making sure you get a really good coat of color on there as well, just so that it doesn't break the illusion when the hat tips a little bit and someone can see the underside. Once you've got a good coat of paint all the way over the hat, and you feel like you've gotten it saturated as you possibly can, you can leave it to dry for a few hours, or if you're really in a rush, take it into another room where you have a hairdryer. Bring a hairdryer in the room where you're at and blow dry the hat. The heat will dry that acrylic paint and the moisture that you've put in there pretty fast so that you can move on to the next step. Once your hat is dried, take a really good look at it. I noticed with mine that there were still a lot of spots where the natural color of the straw was just shining through like little pinpricks of light, and I didn't want that. So I mixed up another coat of paint and went back over the whole hat again, giving it a really good coat, really making sure that I got in all of those crevices, that I was as even as possible all the way around the hat, again doing the underside of the brim, and just really saturating it with the color that I had chosen. One item that I was able to pick up at Goodwill was a dress that I think cost about $4 or $5 that was the right color that I felt was just, again, that nice wine color for the hat. And it's what I covered my first attempt in. So I had plenty of material left over and decided that would be a great hat band for this hat that I just finished painting. The first piece of material I cut from that dress ended up not really fitting exactly the way I wanted it to, so I went back and took a look and decided that the straps from the dress would actually work perfectly. So I cut those off, made sure that I had plenty to work with, and then I went back and, again, because I'd cut the straps off, I needed to close up those ends, and I wasn't really looking to pull out a sewing machine or a needle and thread, so hot glue was right there, and that's what I used. I just put a little dab of hot glue, folded those tips in so that they closed up fairly well, and then proceeded to glue the material directly to the hat. One thing that you'll notice here is that I did leave a little bit of overlay on one end. So one end of those straps is wider than the other, and I made sure that those two wide ends meet on the side where I'm going to put the bird. So they kind of make that little bit of a ribbon that kind of hangs off one side on the hat. They're not quite as long or flowy as the other hat may be, but that just kind of gave the look that I was going for. The bird that sits on the hat in Mary Poppins Returns is a three-dimensional bird, but I don't have a stuffed bird. I wasn't sure where to get a stuffed bird. And getting one that exactly looked like it, I thought was going to be difficult. Painting one to exactly look like it was a little beyond my reach. I have seen a couple of videos online where people have sculpted birds. If that's something you're great at, go for it. It's not my thing. But what I decided to do was to actually just print a picture of the bird. Now, my bird's probably a little larger than it should be, but since I wasn't getting a three-dimensional bird, I kind of went a little big. And what I did was I printed it on a color printer, cut it out, and flared the tail a little bit just to give it a little bit of life, and then just started to decide where on the hat I wanted to put it. To help this paper bird look a little less flat, I decided that I could glue it in such a way that it seemed like it had some substance to it, and to assist with that, I picked up some batting, some craft batting. Actually found it at Goodwill. It only cost like $1. Thought that was awesome. But I took a little piece of this craft batting and I'm folding it up, gonna eventually glue it behind the bird once I get him positioned correctly. So one of the first things I'll do is I will just put a dab of glue at the top of his head once I've decided where he's going to sit, so that I have a point to start with. So the first time I glued the bird onto the hat, I decided it wasn't exactly the spot that I wanted. The hot glue was still tacky enough that I was able to pull him back off very easily so I could reposition him and put him exactly where I wanted him. I still haven't glued him down a whole lot at this point because I still need him to move around a little so I can make some adjustments. One of the things I did do though after I got his head glued to the spot that I did want is I started to work with feathers. Now I did pick these feathers up at Joann. They were a couple of bucks a bag, and I got a couple of different colors trying to decide which way I wanted to go. The feathers on the hat in the movie are very stylized and very specific. So finding those feathers, I think, is a little more difficult. So I just got some plain craft feathers and laid them out on the desk in front of me, trying to decide which way I wanted to go. I ultimately decided to stick with the darker colored feathers that had a little red on the tips. I thought that the blues and purples just really didn't go with the hat as well. So that was just a matter of deciding which feathers, which ones were long enough, where did I want to lay them, and just hot gluing them directly to the hat. I tried to keep it fairly full so that you get a nice plume and really a good coverage just from the tail of the bird itself. Once I had the feathers glued onto the hat where I wanted them, it was time to finish off the bird itself. So I took my batting that I had been working with, rolled it up, and glued it into position behind the bird. I went ahead and glued that to the hat itself just to make sure that it didn't slip and fall out at a later point in time. Once I had that in position, what I determined that I wanted to do was to basically just curl the base of the bird directly into the hatband itself. So I put a small dab of glue right along the edge of the paper and the ribbon, so it's just kind of a hint of glued down. I did glue the back of the bird to the top of the feathers, again giving it a little bit of lift so that it has some depth to it, and put another small dab of glue at the front to hold that down so that you're not looking straight into the bird and seeing the batting and everything that's underneath there. In the end, I just determined that the back of the bird was a little too open, so I took some more of the feathers that I had and glued them directly to the paper for the bird, so it looks like the feathers are attached to it, and it does more to hide that batting and that the bird is not fully attached to the hat itself. Thanks so much for watching my creation of the Mary Poppins Returns hat. I have had a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious time doing this myself, and I would love to see your versions when you get them made, so please put them in the comments below. If you would like for me to do another costuming piece from one of the movies, please leave that in the comments below. Possibly the umbrella or the classic Mary Poppins hats. I would be happy to take on any challenges. Well, most challenges. Thanks so much again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. Hit that subscribe button and notification buttons to make sure that you're getting all of our notifications. And take a look at our blog site, www.geekfamilyof5.com.